Thank you, everyone. So I'm just going to set the scene very briefly before Anna and some very special guests from the world of sport come up onto the stage and bring this to life for you. So imagine a world without journalism. It would change so much, wouldn't it? We all know that life is more complex than ever. We're juggling more, we're demanding more of ourselves, our friends, our family, our businesses, and all with more information available as well. As a result, it can be easy to miss other important things that matter as well. To really navigate and understand politics, the economy, culture, other communities requires time, resource, expertise, and access. And that's why what news brands do is still so important today. And also why there's now 90,000 journalists in the UK, up by a third on just a decade ago. And also, as we heard from Karen from Crudos earlier this morning, news brand readership, as a combined, is actually up in recent years as well. So now when you combine readership from print and all of the digital platforms, our weekly reach is very similar to that of Google. Now, when we think about journalists, you'll meet a fantastic one in a minute, we know that they're trained to uncover the story behind the story, provoke debate, and also expose wrongdoings without fear or favour. Also campaign for positive change, and really broaden our minds to a whole variety of subjects. That's their job, and also the responsibility to our readers as well. So whether you agree or disagree with a specific news brand's political point of view, as a collective, I'm sure you can appreciate that our role in society is vital. Just over the last year alone, the Telegraph has been investigating and campaigning on a huge range of different issues. Just a few examples here. At the beginning of this year, we exposed Philip Green, and as a result, lobbied government around changing legislation and the way that NDAs are used to protect innocent people. We also called on the tech companies to respect their legal duty of care to protect our children in terms of abuse, mental health, and also addictive behaviour. And also, we rallied together 200 business leaders from across the country to push for government to create an independent review into how female entrepreneur funding helps grow their business. And when you look at news brands as a whole, just right now, the variety of issues that they're writing about and campaigning for, everything from single-use plastic to food waste, clean air in London, and tackling knife crime, the list goes on and on. So we wanted to bring to life for you just how we go about creating this quality agenda-setting journalism. And we thought it'd be fantastic to take a sneak behind the scenes. So I'm going to invite onto stage Anna Kessel. She is fully committed to raising the profile of women's sport and the visibility of it in the media. She's going to bring on a few special guests as well, and I hope this gives you just a flavour of the skill set, the expertise, and the time and effort that goes into creating this agenda-setting journalism. Please welcome onto the stage, Anna Kessel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm Anna Kessel. I'm a women's sports editor at the Telegraph. I want to say that job title because there isn't another one on a newspaper. There isn't another women's sports editor. There isn't another women's sports department on another national newspaper. And at a time when, prior to us launching in March, women's sports coverage accounted for just 2%, the entire amount of sports coverage in newspaper sections, this is a really major, major step. We're in an incredibly male-dominated industry, and that's clearly reflected in the coverage. Less than 2% of bylines in sports sections are of women too. And that's a ratio that we're already shifting. Before I go into the coverage, I want to tell you a bit of a story, a personal story. Clues up there. Some of you in this room may have encountered that age-old phrase. Unfortunately, it happened to me, to my family. I've got a 7-year-old girl. She started primary school a few years ago. Age 4 turns up, and the boys tell her, girls can't play football. She's only 4 years old. She's just mastering how to write her own name. She's working out or making sure she can get dressed herself in the morning every day. And yet already at 4, she's faced gender discrimination. I was pretty blown away by that. I think at a time where a young person should be developing their sense of their self, of their opportunities, to have a whole world shut down to them so quickly is worrying. And of course, it doesn't happen in any other subject. In maths or science, we don't say, girls can't do this or girls can't do that. But in school sport, we continue to say which sports girls and boys do. And there continue to be schools where girls cannot play football and are only offered more traditional female sports. 30 years ago, I bunked all of my PE lessons. But I didn't think that a generation on, we would still have such a dysfunctional relationship between sport and the next generation of women and girls. And it's perverse that these patterns continue. As a parent, as an individual, I wanted to change that. And so over the last year, I've set about taking my both daughters to women's football. Small matches, Tottenham, big matches, Women's FA Cup final. There's Ella waving a Man City flag, much to her dad's disgust. She met heroes, top right there, Steph Houghton, England manager, captain, sorry. What an absolute treat. And even her little sister, 3-year-old Malika's there, seeing her older sister playing football, it's already easier to emulate that role model. It's more comfortable. Those are all things that I did as an individual and things that you can all do in this room, and please do go and support women's football and women's sport. The boys who made those comments, and continue still to do so, are not the ones that are at fault. They're just reflecting back what they see in society. And that's what we needed to make a shift on and change. That's why the launch of Telegraph Women's Sport is so powerful. We launched in March with a manifesto. We wanted to change the amount of coverage. We wanted to unearth new female voices and champion them. And we wanted to run a campaign aimed at government to shift the dial on the state of school sport and that gender gap specifically. Female voices are important. Everybody says to us, how do you tell the story of women's sport? How do you make them household names? What do you do? Well, you pass the mic, first of all. Let them tell their stories. Let them showcase their truths, their interesting journeys. And they are interesting. In the last almost 3 months, the stories that we've shown, some told in first person by the sportswomen themselves, others told to journalists, male and female alike, have really moved, inspired. We've talked about parliamentary MPs playing football, we've talked about disability, we've talked about body image issues, grassroots sport. We've even got on the bottom right there, Caroline Criado-Perez writing for us about the gender data gap in sport and how it affects. We want to reach and engage new audiences. Yes, we must satisfy that traditional sports audience that have expectations, but also a newer, younger audience that are more digitally based. So takeovers of women's sport and using influencers like Alice Living, who's been a great supporter of ours from the start. We work closely with designers every single day to try and create a very distinct look for what we're doing. Women already say in their droves, certainly to me personally, they don't necessarily pick up a sports section. It's not something that's attractive to them. They might not have done it. Lots of women do, but lots of women don't. So we wanted to change the look and feel of our standalone supplement. That's a sneak preview of the Women's World Cup supplement. It's 16 pages and it's out on Friday. Please do buy a copy. On Friday, the Women's World Cup starts, and we have unprecedented coverage. 6 writers going out to cover the tournament, including our chief sports writer, Paul Hayward. We'll have live blogs, podcasts, and one very special columnist. So without further ado, I'd like to announce to the stage, Jordan Nobbs. Thanks for joining us, Jordan. Jordan is an England and Arsenal legend. Very lucky to have her, and we're very pleased to have signed her as a columnist. But unfortunately, there's one practical reason why we were able to get you and not get you out to France, and that's because of the ACL injury that you sustained in November. Since then, you've been telling your story. You shared with us such a powerful column in the paper, and you did the Lioness documentary on Sunday night with the BBC. How hard is it to tell that story?
Yeah, I think as a footballer, it's coming to terms with injuries come with the game and accepting that. But I think also the other side to playing is kind of your mental state and how you voice, I guess, the good times and the bad times. I've been very privileged to obviously join the Telegraph, and you know, speaking about my injury is tough, and I'm obviously missing one of the biggest tournaments known to women's football right now. But I think if I can be a 1% difference, you know, off the field and still share my voice and share my experiences and be a top role model, then, you know, if that's through a column or any other way that I can carry on, you know, pushing the women's game and having a voice, then I'd love to be part of that.
And that is significant, isn't it? Because when you were growing up, or more recently in your career, women's football coverage, there wasn't a lot of it. It was quite hard at times to watch it on TV, and certainly to find a match report in a newspaper. But things are changing, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 26 now. I've been at Arsenal 9 years, and I think my journey has been incredible. I've gone from the semi-professional to professional, and you know, as a kid, I've ended up in the place I am today just through the love of football, not through kind of being told as a kid, oh my God, you can play professionally, or you know, put the telly on and you'll see it there, how good it is. It's kind of just, you know, the era that I was in was just, you know, you fought for what you loved, and the passion kind of got me to where I am today. But I think we need to be in a place where everyone plays a part in allowing, you know, a young girl like your daughter at the age of 4 to just have the respect and the opportunities to say, if you want to play football, you can. And, you know, I think everyone in this room could leave today and have a voice on saying to their kids, you know, boys or girls, or, you know, in their whatever education or environment they're in, to just talk good things about the women's game, and that we are in a place where we're doing it because we love it. We train hard every day. We go to the gym every day. You know, we're full time, and we're doing that because of the love of the sport. And hopefully we can allow young girls to dream that from a lot younger than what I did.
Now, you're not totally removed from the squad. You've played quite an important part in the build-up to this World Cup. Phil Neville said that you were a secret weapon in a way. Tell us a bit about that.
Obviously, I played in all the qualifiers leading up to the World Cup, but yeah, I think it was difficult. I think you either take that option to, you know, strip away from the girls and everything like that, but you know, I don't want to miss out on being such a huge part of this World Cup, and Phil obviously allowed me to be an incredible part of his team. You know, I went to the England camps leading up to the World Cup as an injured player. I did my rehab there. I was, you know, eating food with the girls and played a part, and yeah, it was tough, but I think it's still just coming to terms with that injury. But yeah, like I said, I'm so glad to still be a part of it all.
And he related to you, of course, didn't he? Because he missed 3 World Cups. Well, he wasn't included in the squad. So there was sort of synergy there, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think, you know, Phil Neville, I think we all know him as a player, and he missed out on 3 major tournaments of being told he wasn't selected. So I think he knows the heartbreak that I'm going through, and I think as a manager you need to not just see us as footballers but as people, and you know, knowing their stories and knowing what they are like off the field and how they are as personalities. And I think he knows, you know, I moved away from home when I was 16 to come to Arsenal because of the love of the game. So, you know, we have a lot of sacrifices within it, and I think it's, if a manager can understand and have that cohesion with his players, then it allows you to be stronger and, you know, carry on pushing as a player.
How will you be using your column through this tournament to really change the conversation around women's sport?
I think it's just having my voice on, you know, firstly the respect in what we do, the different stories. I think within the women's game we've always said from years ago that I think we're in a place where we interact a lot with our fans. I think fans come and they get to know us as people as well. You know, we'll be the last people on the pitch signing autographs and speaking to fans, and hopefully that engages them to come back. So I think having my voice of different stories, or allowing people to hear the women's game and my journey, I hope that comes across in the columns, and hopefully they get to know a little bit more about the Lionesses and the journeys they go on.
Thank you. There's another very important set of voices that I want to invite to the stage. Francesca Brown, Demi and Aisha from Girls for Girls, please come up. So I've told you already that we're sending out 6 writers to the World Cup, but there's an additional very special digital project that we wanted to showcase. It was an idea that Francesca had, and they're going to tell us a little bit about how they're going to add to that, to our coverage, and why it's such an important perspective. Why did you come up with this idea, Francesca?
So basically, speaking to the girls prior to the Women's World Cup, I realised that there was a lack of visibility for female role models, and a lot of the things which were happening at the top wasn't filtering down to the grassroots level. So the great advertisements which was going on around the Women's World Cup, the great discussions which were happening, these young women were not involved in this journey, and they couldn't feel the whole energy around what we are all feeling. So I came up with the concept of Through Her Eyes. I wanted to see, from a young woman's perspective, a young female fan, what it'd be like to experience the journey of the Women's World Cup.
So Demi and Aisha, from Canning Town to Leeds, you'll be going to France this weekend to watch England-Scotland, as you know, and reporting on it for the Telegraph, letting our readers back home know what's happening out there. What does football mean to you? Aisha, tell us first.
It's sort of like a scapegoat to me, to be fair, because I've had to face challenges in life, and when you go through stuff at such a young age, you need sort of like a scapegoat in order to forget what you're living back at home, or, you know. So it's sort of like, it's life to me, to be fair. Football is a part of me, and it's something I've literally been doing all my life. And it's something I would really like to dedicate myself for the rest of my life, to be fair.
And that's not an easy thing to do, is it, Demi? When you're at school, you were telling me backstage that initially the boys would be playing football or going off on tournaments to Manchester or wherever else, and you would be stuck back in the classroom doing maths.
Yeah, I mean, before we all was introduced into Francesca, from the school we came from, which is in Custom House, the sport was very dominated for boys only. And the opportunities that the boys were given, we were never really given the opportunity. So, for an example, like consistently, their training sessions would be every day or whenever it was placed to be. With us, we had a PE teacher that was very inconsistent. So the boys would be out there enjoying themselves, being able to go to tournaments, take part in cup games, but we never had that. And from when Francesca joined our school and introduced us into the Goals for Girls program, it was just like a breakthrough for us girls, because there's so many talented girls in our school and amongst our environment and area that are unrecognised. So,
Actually, you were saying about when girls and boys play football together, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do.
It's not, simply because boys have the idea of, like, as you said before, girls can't play football. But it's also trust. So there's a lack of trust between boys and girls. And if it came to the point where the girl didn't have a good standard when it comes to playing football compared to the guy, then the boys just wouldn't just pass the ball. They wouldn't really want to associate themselves with the girl in terms of playing football. So that makes it harder for the girl, makes them think that, well, perhaps I'm not good enough and I'll never be. And then they just say with that certain state of mind, and then eventually they start believing, well, I might as well start pursuing something else if football is really not for me. If people are telling me this, then maybe it's true. But I think it's time for, like, us girls to also understand that words are just words, and eventually, in order to you know, prove ourselves, we need to show people. And I do believe we are, because like Barclays has sponsored women's football recently and invested millions in it, and I think that's the kind of recognition we need from people in general. I feel like, that's
Francesca, the girls and yourself will be going out to France this weekend. What is the one thing, if you can sum it up in 20 seconds, that you'll be giving our readers through their eyes?
We'll be captivating the young women's journeys, giving them a platform to make their voices heard, and creating their visibility. Rather than creating everybody else's visibility, we're creating their visibility to allow them, to give them purpose and a platform to tell their stories, and hopefully meet some role models which they can also aspire to be like.
I love that, thank you. What I've learnt since joining Telegraph in March is that editors are the gatekeepers, effectively, of media. Who gets to speak? Who gets to use their voice? It's a very powerful position, and all of us in this room have some form of gatekeeping. It's really important that we use that well. I want to use journalism as a force for good and a force for change, to inspire girls and to change the opportunities for girls. So thank you very, very much for listening today. I hope that what you've heard has been interesting, and I hope so much that you will support the Lionesses on their journey this summer.